Barbershop Podcast. Here we are Wednesday night at Boxo Studio, the place where Barbershop Podcast brings you the very best in Hamilton music and musicians each and every week. And as usual, my cohort partner in crime, Ryan Cannon, is joining us in the studio.
What's that? You almost forgot my name?
No, I was going to...
Ryan Cannon?
Ryan Cannon.
Ryan Cannon.
I was going to say Rhiannon. How you doing today, brother?
Oh, good. You know, for all those that tuned into our special broadcast, Monday night, they know we've had a nice trial run on the new software, and we're 20 minutes late from a couple little hiccups. But
yeah, for good reason. You know, you're going to enjoy yourself tonight. You're going to have a good time as usual, but it's going to look just that little bit slicker.
Yeah.
Each and every week we strive to bring you the best, and we want to look our best. And tell your friends, by the way, Barbershop Podcast. So this week, I'm kind of jacked about this one. This fella, I was fortunate enough to see play at a couple of the art events in town. What he brings is not only musical, it's kind of spiritual, and it's very deeply Hamilton, his story and his music. And couldn't think of a better guest to have on Barbershop Podcast. Famous Framus in the studio tonight. How you doing?
Great, Kevin. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no
pleasure
problem.
to be here.
Well, you know what? We are thrilled. Before we get into your story, I thought that we would have the three of us, a little chew about podcasts, about the format, because I didn't know a lot about them when in November of 2012, we had the very first episode. And Ryan said, you know, this is something you should check out. This is something you should, think about doing. And, I was sold ever since. And when I ran into yet another art event, you came up and said, hey, Kev, I'm a fan of the show.
Big fan of the show.
I'm a fan of the format. And it was kind of a bit of a busy situation then. So we didn't get a chance to really get in and talk about podcasting and the digital revolution and what's happening with broadcasting now. So, I thought, what a better time and place to do that right now. So tell me, about what you love about the format.
Oh, I'm a big fan of long form conversation. It's something that doesn't really happen anymore. I was always a fan of the old talk shows growing up. There would always be the Johnny Carson, the Dick Cabots, the Tom Snyders. I would sneak and stay up late and listen to that stuff. And bad talk radio. I've been listening to bad talk radio for years. And this, at least in the television medium, it seems like the conversations now are so canned and so, promote, don't say anything and go, that when podcasting came about, and I kind of discovered podcasting about 7-8 years ago. I started listening to them because I spent time at a crappy job on an assembly line. So it was a way to take conversations about different stuff that interested me, and just put it right in your head. And there's something so intimate about that when it's done well, you actually feel like you're a part of the conversation. Yeah. Like the inner dialogue is, when I'm listening to you and Ryan, I'm kind of chirping in and throwing my bits in, or I'm identifying with what you guys are saying. And it's such an intimate form of communication, I think, coming from a radio age, obviously, and it's so portable, it's so accessible at any time. It's so, if you missed something, you can hit the button and back it up 15 seconds just to make sure that, you got what they were saying. And the subject matter is the spectrum is
everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere. And you guys do it well. You guys do it well. I'm a fan, and I've been a fan of podcasts for a long time. I've listened to a lot of different podcasts. And you guys are right there for sure.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. It's like I've got my favorites. I love all the Kevin Smith stuff, Joe Rogan's podcast.
Joe Rogan, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you spend, especially Rogan's podcasts are 3 hours.
Oh,
every single
grueling.
one
Yeah,
is
they're
3
grueling.
hours.
For sure.
And he's on 400 something. So that's getting on 1,000 hours of Joe Rogan I've got in my head. Like,
yeah,
I've talked to him for more than I've talked to most people, or listened to him talk for more than I've listened to most people I know talk.
I know. It's, you feel like you. I'm a big fan of the Mark Maron podcast, the WTF podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've listened to a couple.
But I jumped on like the second one he put up. I jumped on it. So I've been on it with the whole ride. And I feel like that guy is like, he's a bro of mine.
Yeah.
I went to see him, we went to see him when he was at Yuck Yucks in Toronto. And it's not a new kind of, everybody kind of feels that way that's been along. They ask him about his cats and you feel like because people let, he's very self-deprecating, along with you guys, like we were talking about the stuff that you're talking about, and you feel like, yeah, that's hilarious, you know what I mean? Like, okay, how's your cat? How's your weight? Like, we're there with you.
Yeah, I believe that authenticity is where the next wave's at.
Totally.
You can only shove plastic. I mean, you've got an enlightened generation, or the potentially, enlightened generation of the baby boomers and the hippies, and believing in love and pitching it and music and how that entered into the lexicon. And now these kids must have picked this up, and now they have the weight of numbers as well. And I just have to believe that if they're going to be the ones who change things, that it's going to start by having things that mean things that are authentic.
Authenticity is, I think people innately, no matter what generation, if they're thinking, self-examining, existential
Evolving
human beings, they can sniff out authenticity and they can sniff out bullshit.
Yeah,
I think that goes across generationally. I hope it does anyway.
Yeah, but the fact that so few people, it was getting worse and worse that you would have multimedia, multinational companies buying media groups, and Colbert and Stewart would joke about it, and they would show the same newscast up and down, the U.S. seaboard, who has the exact same story with the same inflection, and you realize just to what extent.
Oh, and the same. Surfing squirrel to end the news show on a good note. Everybody can go to bed in a happy mood because there's a squirrel that can be dragged along on a mini surfboard.
And likewise, entertainment. They don't really concentrate on, what is the musical roots of this person. It's like, who are they fucking, or what are they wearing, or are they going to rehab? And it got further and further away from the music. And in a lot of people's lives, unfortunately, music had been pushed to the background. But now, right up front, it was being... it was something auxiliary to, the other stuff that's going on. If you're talking about whoever's in the news,
totally. And the music thing in the background music is probably more pervasive than it's ever been, but it's always a part of something or consumed while you're doing something or while you're on your way somewhere. Or music. We used to sit around all day,
cross-legged on the floor,
make mixtapes all day, or be in your, get up and change the record and. It was something that you did, and that was it. But now it's with something. I mean, like I say, it's pervasive, but it's kind of in the background a bit. Yeah. For the the next generation, I'm not going to lament because I had mine, and they'll figure theirs out too, right?
But the library's there, right? But the thing is, it's now a matter how do you get yourself noticed? The Haystack said same thing with home recording. Before, it was a process to get to very few studios. And then you've got high quality home recording now. So more and more people have that accessible. It means there's more shit out there, but there's jewels in there. And I believe the same thing's happening now with journalism.
Sure.
People can find the things that interest them.
That's the key. You have to seek it out now. Yeah. Now it doesn't find you. You have to find it, whether that be truth in journalism, truth in music, truth in literature, truth. Yeah. You got to find the truth because the truth is not going to find you.
No, you have to do a little bit of work, but that's okay. That excites me.
Sure.
It always been a big part of music when I was doing music was pushing the band, finding a band that I loved, I believed in. You want that everyone else to share that joy that you feel.
Sure, yeah.
And that excitement. So, that's what we do here at Barbershop Podcast. I've often thought, I said a lot of people are very artists. They put a lot of work and passion into their music, but once they get it, they're difficult for them to go out and sell it hard and promote it.
That's the $1,150 question.
A little bit defensive about it, a little bit scared about it. I always said, that's your bottle of booze, okay? And you can't say, this is a great bottle of booze, or you mix it with this, it makes it feel like this. You got to think of it, it's one bottle of booze in a liquor store that's stuffed full of different kinds of bottles of booze.
Right.
And be okay with that, but say, what's your crowd? Like, what kind of mood are people in? Let them know why. They should choose your bottle of booze over that bottle of booze. And, this is a part of it. I believe people need to make an emotional investment. And it's like, why should I listen to this guy? Why should I even bother, going to the tune and seeing what he's about?
Sure.
And if this guy's, he's intelligent, he's interesting, he's funny.
That's the dilemma, though, as an artist is, where do your artist lines stop when you're a self-promotion huckster? Like you have to be, and I know this from going to clubs and trying to get gigs and doing the whole thing that I've been doing for years and years. But sometimes when you get to a line where you're trying to be a huckster and sell yourself, and then it's a hard thing to balance, because too much of the sell, you're just like, why am I doing this? Like I have something to say, I want to say it. I'm going to say it for myself, because that's what an artist has to do. You have to please yourself. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's just pandering and trying to, please people while they're creating something, it's not going to, in my opinion, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's got to be real. It's got to come from you. And then people identify with it. Then that's great. Like that's what great art does. It tells you something about yourself as a consumer, as a watcher, a listener of art. Is, good art tells you about the artist, but when you identify with great art, it tells you something about yourself.
Very well put.
So that artist has to be talking about themselves for you to think about yourself.
Yeah.
But then the selling and the promotion and personally myself, it makes me a little bit like we were talking about that. I'm kind of a dinosaur when it comes to that end of it, the social media, I'll get in people's faces and shake their hands and, sit down and give them a CD and, build relationships, which is what I've done over the years. If you build a relationship with, Mike at the Red Dog in Peterborough, and his daughter was sick last time you talked to him, you say, how's your daughter? Oh, and by the way, we're going to be coming through town. You got a night for us, whatever.
Absolutely.
That's old-fashioned relationship building. But now this likes and friends and like how many? If you were on Facebook and you said I'm moving, how many of your Facebook friends would show up to help you move? You know what I mean? Probably the same amount of people that the friends that you had before Facebook.
Probably.
So for me, and time-wise, that's just consumes probably more than the create. I don't even have time to create. How am I going to have time to promote?
Yeah.
So it's for an independent artist who's trying to seek something, commercial, financial remediation. That's a tough.
It is, and that's why it's it'd be nice to have that promoter and that publicist and that person.
Exactly.
You need that third person to come in and carry that.
The old style of the music business, where this is what I have now. Here, take it and sell it for me.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist anymore.
No,
not on this scale anyway.
Yeah, it's been evaporated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have an interesting story. I remember reading about you when Rick wrote about you, and I think your last CD release, and talking about the early days and you're working man and having a passion and dream, follow the music. Take me back to the early days. A lot of times it's 11, 12, 13 years old. And
Sure.
you start catching the passion. Who was it?
Absolutely.
And where was it? And when was it with you?
Well, as a music fan, music just grabbed me right away. Early, I was exposed to, sometimes bombarded with music. I remember having the little plastic 45 players as far back as I can remember, and then going down to Sam the Record Man, taking the bus to get the chart every week. And that was like 7, 8, 9 years old. In the 70s, that was the golden age of well-crafted pop music on the AM side. So it was easy to get sucked up with that, and then the Kiss Army happens and all that kind of stuff, and then you're like, whoa, what's this?
I'm part of something now.
Totally, yeah, and then that's when FM radio was really evolving as well. I remember being exposed to that, but as a fan of music. But I know the impressions that planted the seed to play music was kind of on a different level, because the house I grew up in, there would be these people, these miscreants would come in and out of our lives at different times. Like I could go to bed on at 10:30 as a kid, and then wake up at 3 take a piss, and there'd be like a kitchen party going on, and people would be playing spoons, and somebody would have their Hank Williams record collection, and they'd be like, here, you want to talk about, listen to the story of the Carter family. And I'm like, okay,
why is everyone so friendly at 3 in the morning?
As long as I could stay up, sure. So that would happen. But these people would come in and out of our lives. And there was one guy especially, this like hard-ass truck driver guy. His name was Paul, and he played acoustic guitar and he sang. And I'll never forget, like, seeing him and seeing the power of that. Like, this guy was a bad dude, man. Like, you could just, but when he started singing and playing, like, he just captivated everyone. And he was just pulling his rib cage open, like, and bleeding on the table, like, crying, like, playing to the point of tears. And I remember being a kid and looking around and seeing this and seeing the power of it. And it just went right to the core of me. Like, that impression, that power of just a man with an acoustic guitar singing in a kitchen, playing his guts out. Yeah. And it was like, I remember something like that's powerful. There's something magic about that. So, you know, as I became a teenager, my uncle actually lied and got me in this shutdown job he was a millwright, and he snuck me in GE in Guelph on a shutdown. He said, just tell them you're like a third-year apprentice. I was like 16 years old, I think. And he goes, just carry the tools, walk around, and look like you know what you're doing, right? If somebody asks you if you're a motor guy, you tell them you're a turbine guy. And if somebody asks you if you're a turbine guy, you tell them you're a motor guy. So I actually made and this is over 30 years ago, I made like $400 for the weekend or something. It was ridiculous. Yeah. So I booted right down to Waddington's and bought an acoustic guitar, a Yamaha acoustic guitar. And at the time, my best friend at the time played guitar, and a girlfriend played guitar. So they showed me the rudiments of, DCG, and I just worked, get the Pink Floyd down, get the Needle and the Damage down, all those, the Stairway to Heaven, of course, just woodshed. And then that guy, Paul, showed me a few country licks. So I did that, and then it just came to a point where it just kind of hit a wall. And then by that time I was working and I was full-time drinking, just angry and breaking things, and there was no time to really be banging on a guitar. But it was always leaning there by the stereo, right? Like, it was always there at the front. So it was down for a few years, and then when I was older, my son was born, and my son was a baby, and I was like laid off. I was working on the docks. It was shipping season. It was a winter time, so. A buddy of mine came over and he just showed me like a little lick, a Stevie Ray Vaughan lick. And I was like, whoa, like, 'cause Stevie Ray Vaughan was like, that was my doorway to blues future, blues past, everything. Like, everything went through him. And I'm like, how'd you learn that, man? And he's like, he explained to me about guitar tab. 'Cause I didn't know anything about guitar tab because I've never taken a lesson. I don't know how to read music. So he's like, he showed me this thing, and he explained tab, and so I put strings on the guitar, and I was home all the time, and the baby routine, like feed, nap, get up, wash, nap. Like, there's lots of time when you're home. So I had hours and hours so I strung up the guitar. He showed me the lick. He explained tab to me, showed me how to read tab, and then I was off. I was like just totally focused on just squeezing what I could and out of this guitar, and learning stuff and learning the language. I felt like I was learning the language. So, and I had listened to so much music that, being untrained on the guitar, like I didn't go about it as a musical academic way. I went about it more like a mechanical way, like
it's a sound machine.
Yeah, like up and down, these must do something. Yeah. These dots must mean something. Yeah. I don't know what they mean. Yeah. But they must mean something, so maybe I'll stop there and see where that is, see what that does. And then I would hear these sounds, and it would be like, I'd listen to so much music that I'd be like, hey, I've heard that before. Hey, I've heard that before. Maybe I could put these together, especially when I started playing slide. I was like, oh, okay, I've heard this bend before. I've heard this note before. And then I just started putting it together. And then I wrote a song. Like, my ambition was just to sit on my porch and play that blues, like, that triplet, and just sit there and whatever, like, just pass the time. But then when I wrote that song, when I started writing and creating, I was like,
that changed
everything. That was
everything.
A whole other level, yeah. That's when it grabbed hold of me.
Yeah, there's no looking back.
No, yeah, totally. Once you cross that, it's like, because the appreciation of music, people love music. I love music. But when you can play music, that's like the factor of 10. The feeling that it's hard to explain to somebody that doesn't do it, but it's that much more.
Yeah. I remember I used to go to the old La Luna and went to the open stages there when I was just learning with my new songs and quite, insecure and playing with other people.
Right.
And that old Boris who came in there.
I remember Boris.
Yeah.
Boris, the Balkan blues guy.
Balkan blues
he used
guy.
to play at the
He would do these old Volga boatman, riffs, and apparently he was a judge of some renown, but he was quite older, but he would dye his hair black and would come in. And I played with someone, and I remember he was in the washroom, and he looked at me, he says, you are very good. And I went, oh, no, I'm a hack. He goes, no, you can play with anybody. And what he meant was, because I'm not classically trained,
right,
I listen to the song and I play along with the song.
Sure.
And he, and I respected that. And so he stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Boris, wow, yeah.
There's a flash from the past.
Totally.
Well, before we get in, we've done this before, you get an interesting guest and we start gabbing and we realize 45 minutes has gone by before any music kicks off. You feel like starting off with a live song for us?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. And you've brought a plethora of instruments.
I brought a plethora and a plethora plus one.
Plus one. And love what you're doing. Love that you're doing it here. So whenever you're ready to go, give us a little bit of your famous Framus magic. Barbershop Podcast.
This song was written in a mental hospital. Let the bells of St. George pick you up off the floor. You don't need to be scared. Come on in the door. They said he was an old drunk and he smelled like a skunk. You never dare look in his eyes. When the people walked by, they shook their heads up inside. How could he just let himself go? Let the bells of St. George pick you up off the floor. You don't need to be scared. Come on in the door. He'd been kicked around by life, lost his little son and wife, and he just couldn't care anymore. Then on one Sunday morning, he woke up beaten and worn, and he picked himself up off the ground. Let the bells of St. George pick you up off the floor. You don't need to be scared. Come on in the door. Well, they'd walk and he'd crawl with that busted head and all. He followed that beautiful sound. And the song that he heard finally freed him like a bird. He felt the presence of the Lord. Let the bells of St. George pick you up off the floor. You don't need to be scared. Come on in the door. The voice said, come on inside. You got nothing to hide. But for the grace of God, go wide. Sit down, don't you judge. We're not here to budge. And where you'll find the real hide. Let the bells of St. George pick you up off the floor. You don't need to be scared. Come on in the door. And they sang, God grant me serenity to accept the things that I can't change, courage to change the things that I can't, wisdom to know those things are the same. Bells of St. George.
Bells of St. George.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta like it. Here at barbershoppodcast.com, famous Framus. So you started writing, you saw the light, and you developed your own sound, and you're starting to get that flow inside of you, producing more and more things. Take me to that time frame between now you have to start performing and
Yes.
start building that crew of people around you who are sharing a vision. And when you recorded your first your first album, 8 Ball.
Well, I did some recording, a bunch of recording. I forced let Paul in on the Big Secret and brought him right on board right off the hop. But I did some recording as a soloist at Danny Z's place in Hessville, Blue Tilt Studios.
Yep.
And a bunch of just EPs. I was doing like six song EPs, like every 6 months maybe, just because I thought at the time, like people's attention spans, I think, were about that long.
Even yours, you're worried about forgetting them one day, right?
Exactly. So I would get in there and then do these recordings, and then just press them off my computer, do the artwork myself. And there was a certain kind of brand, like I would use the same font, the same black and white kind of picture. So I planned it as my pre-box set, but first, you know what I mean? Like just the original kind of demo recordings. They were rough, mistakes were in, but that was okay because I just wanted to document it. Things were just coming so fast that I wanted to get things documented. Yeah. And so I did that. And with help from Mitch LeBlanc, who hooked me up with Danny, and he actually engineered some stuff way back that we did in his place. And then I went and toured out west. I was playing open mics, then started playing solo shows. Played with some of the guys from the old Staircase Cafe as a band a few times. Robin Lee played guitar with me for a while. Mitch played harmonica with me for a while. Just play. As much as I could play, as much as I could write, as much as I could record. Just I felt like it was pouring out of me. It was a super prolific creative time. And then, like I say, finally that built. Worked for a long time to organize a tour out west. So I knew I'd be laid off from my job. I had 6 weeks to kill. So I booked 14 shows in 18 days, went out west, played all the way out to Victoria, and then got better. Like there's just no way you can't get better playing that much stage time and that compressed of a time. And when I come back to town, I was like, okay, now my chops are good. Met Dave, knew Dave through Dave Gould.
Dave Gould, friend of the show?
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, Boom Boom Gould. He was one of the Staircase open mic guys, and Mitch was there, so I just kind of envisioned like Dave on drums, and I had electric gear that I hadn't used, and I was ready to bust that out, and Mitch playing harmonica and put the band together, and then it got more urgent, more aggressive. There was like a punk element in there as well, which was a total blast. And just play fast and long and hard. It was like we'd play, once we started playing, it's one 90-minute song.
Yeah, and not going in with a preconception of let's write a song that sounds like this.
No.
Boom, this way it came.
Yeah, all the songs always originate, they can be played at a kitchen table, which is where most of my stuff was written and continues to be written, on acoustic. And then whatever, I would just bring it, and those guys would just throw in. Like I never said, do this, do that. I would just play it, and whatever organically kind of came up, it just evolved. The stuff evolved on its own, and it just got. Dave really brought that out in me, the real performance and the punk and just the speed, because we would just try and tire each other out basically, and we try and make Mitch pass out, make him do like 4-minute harmonica solos, and. We just keep going again and again and again, and it was just like who's going to get tired first, because we're not going to.
Yeah, especially if it's if you're playing this song, apropos off of 2006's 8 Ball. This is Methamphetamine, Letdown, Breakdown at barbershoppodcast.com.
Feel down, I feel down, you let me down again. You let me down, my friend. And I wonder to myself, where will this all end? Said I wonder to myself, where will this all end? I feel bad. cold, hung up the phone. Now you're all alone. Hung up the phone. Now you're all alone. Maybe you can see just what you have done. Maybe you can see just what you have done. I hear rain, hear rain, I hear rain, I hear rain, and in my heart, down comes pain. In my heart, down comes pain. And as I read this song, I wonder, are you all gone? As I read this song, I wonder, are you all gone?
Methamphetamine, Letdown Breakdown from Famous Framus here at barbershoppodcast.com, Hamilton's own Famous Framus. Some other guests who are on Barbershop Podcast have a show coming up Friday, May 2nd. That's a week from this Friday. If you're out in the Brantford area, I would highly recommend you make this show. I believe this is at the Brantford Arts Block, and it features the Acoustics and Tia McGrath and her man Tommy. Check those shows out. Superlative musicianship, incredible singing and playing. And if you're into roots music, acoustic music, you like a kitchen party, check this out. So the first person who, what do you want to do, Ryan, messages us on the Facebook page and answers the stunning trivia question, which episode is this at Barbershop Podcast? Because I didn't even mention it, did I?
You didn't mention it, and you can't now. So
I can't now, but they should be able to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
I think a little bit of work is in order, right? Wouldn't be that hard. Because
it's not that hard.
$40 worth of tickets.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's worth it. Do a little bit of work, and these tickets could be yours.
Yeah. I'll give you a hint. It begins with a 7.
Yes. It's somewhere between 70 and 79.
7,000.
So, the music began, to grow, and what you were trying to do with music obviously was changing as you saw the power that it had. What were you doing with your life? Is music now totally something that consumed you 100%, or were you still trying to have a life balance?
At that time, I was, I had, my son was young. I was working semi-regularly, but it was, I would say, like a good portion of my waking time and energy was spent getting gigs, setting up show, recording, playing, the whole all-encompassing, and I was totally immersed in it and happy with it, to be doing it, to be driven by it, for sure.
And what was the greatest revelation of the first part of your career, that you could do it, and it's like, holy shit, look at it, I'm here?
That was a big revelation. Actually, meeting, starting to write and play was one thing, but then when I met Mitch LeBlanc, who we worked with together, and then he turned me on to, he was doing home recordings and stuff, which was foreign to me. I thought, it made me think, whoa, this is accessible. Like that was another kind of signpost, was like, we can do this. Like I can make a record. I can record this stuff. It was a big revelation to me, because at that time I thought that, like we were talking about before, that it was all big studio stuff, and it was like, this wasn't accessible to the regular guy. And when you can actually hear yourself when you've been, recorded, it's like, wow, it kind of blows your mind when you first get into that, for sure.
Yeah.
And that took me on a whole other, like I say, I saw the aesthetics, visuals of the discs, just the way I wanted to present
And
it.
as an artist or someone with heavy artistic leanings, there's a whole another element to the business that obviously started appealing to you too. It's like I have to brand myself. Who is Famous Framus? And
Exactly.
how does it fit into someone's life? How do I make this
That's right.
relevant?
True.
So what was the comic book character in your mind? Who was Famous Framus?
Well, it was it stemmed from a guitar that I had of Framus, and I had the propensity to name inanimate objects jokingly, but this guitar was like everybody liked playing it, and it was.
A Framus is not a cheap guitar, but it was an accessible guitar that was available through mail order and
yeah, I got mine through kind of nefarious means, which I don't really want to get into right now, but. It came out of a closet and I opened it up and started playing it, and it was like I think it had been in the case for probably years and if not decades, and I started playing it. It had a different sound, it had a different feel, and I found out later that it was actually a church guitar, but I was playing devil's music on it,
yeah.
and I was playing slide on it. It had a steel nut, so it sounded really dark and kind of screamy. It sounded when you played the minor stuff on it, it really it just had a real distinct kind of sound. So I once I started realizing that I wanted to got into the branding, the recording, that wanted to take it out to I was playing open mics, and then now I want to play shows. I'm aspiring to do. So I thought, well, okay, Famous Framus, there's a million guys named Mike, and there's probably a few dozen guys named Mike with tattoos on their necks. But, if I adopt this this persona, this Famous Framus, there's a whole other thing where, there's this thing about celebrity culture, and like we were talking about, this fast, gratuitous, everybody's in it for the 5 minutes and for the fame, but if I'm Famous Framus, I'm already famous.
Yes.
So I'm doing it I'm there to peel my rib cage open. I'm not there to get famous because I'm already famous.
Yeah.
So that was one of the kind of the motifs that I was working on at the time, was like, okay, well, we'll get past that.
Yeah.
Now
paints a nice solid 2-second picture.
Exactly.
And that stuff's important.
And I've always liked, I like the old blues guys that, they might have been hopping trains, but they were hopping trains in a suit. When they played, they were rocking a suit.
Yeah.
They might have slept in it for a week, but it was still a suit. When you see the guy, who's in the band, everybody can wear jeans, but when, like everybody in the bar is wearing jeans, I'm on stage, I'm going to rock this suit, man, because it makes me feel good. It makes me
stand out.
Yeah, and it was weird because I would go play shows later on and like play birthday parties, whatever, and it'd be like, I'm playing without the suit, and I'd be like, I can't even remember the words to my songs, or it's not the full meal deal,
Yeah.
Like once you get everything
It's a
in, and you're in
Superman
that
cape,
headspace,
it is.
exactly. It's like, okay, now I'm focused. This is what I'm here for, right?
Wonderful.
So it was an all-encompassing kind of thing that really, it's a pleasure to inhabit it, and like I say, get past the famous part, get in, peel the ribcage open, bleed on some people's shoes. And sometimes that wasn't appreciated at all. Sometimes people paid me to stop playing because it was a little bit they weren't there for the truth. They were just there to have martinis and chat. So
that's not the blues that
No.
I expected.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we certainly do in here. We love originality. We love original music, and I would be thrilled if you would play a little bit more of the devil's music.
Let's do it.
And treat us to what is Famous Framus. If you get an opportunity to purchase any of his CDs, we'll have the links to his website on barbershoppodcast.com. Famous Framus here, barbershoppodcast.com.
Let me in. Be my friend. Let me feel what it's like to be real.
Anytime you want, brother. The door is open at barbershoppodcast.com. Barbershop Podcast, where you get the best in Hamilton music and musicians each and every week. Tell all your friends. Well, you're writing like a madman. You're producing. Things are starting to roll along now. 2 years later, you come up with enough material to produce another CD. At this point, have you got a sound and a format and a system down, or is what you're producing constantly also evolving and the sound is changing?
Yeah, I would say it's evolving. It's changing. At that time, with Mitch and Dave, their thing, they were bringing their thing. Like I say, it wasn't. I never asked those guys to play anything except what they felt like playing. Mm-hmm. So what they brought to the table was themselves, which made it, a collective. And like I say, I would write the songs and just bring them in. They were kitchen table acoustic songs, and then we just throw it up against the wall. And we were, super close and good friends. And luckily, both those guys are real tech savvy. So Mitch produced and recorded Down by Desire, our second record. Dave produced the third record, Unmortal Love. So we did them in super guerrilla weekend sessions. Just killed it because I'm really not the most patient studio time guy. I just wanted to me, a record is like taking a picture of where we're at. Like, take that picture, develop the picture, and then let's keep moving forward. Like, it's if you're tinkering and paralysis by analysis and taking this out and trying to put that in, to me, that just doesn't turn me on at all. I don't have the patience for that.
Yeah.
So recording sessions to me are a weekend. Let's kill it. Let's get it down and get it out.
And that's really what your sound is about. You're going to capture someone in a really kind of Florida Gator, kind of way. And I guess a lot of people have asked you to identify or to classify your music. When the easy answer, what do you tell them?
The Incredible Hulk having sex with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
I have
no idea.
No, that works for me.
Sure,
that works for me. Again, it's a format. What I hear, and you touched on it with the punk aspect, because you've got the blues, you've got definitely that Delta sound in there, and
that's my foundation. I would say that if there's one thing that just makes my soul dance, it's acoustic Delta blues. Like that, to me, that's a funk band. When I hear that stuff, I just want to just peel it open. That's always touched me. As soon as I discovered it, like I said, my introduction to the blues was probably Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then I went backwards, which a lot of people do. I'm sure you've done, and Paul's done, and Brian's done. You get introduced to somebody, and then you go back and kind of touch on their influences. And then when I went back and found that old Delta stuff, that just was like, that was me. I identified with it totally, and I still do to this day.
It could be because you weren't there, and you weren't living that life, and you weren't the ones cutting that original wax. It tends to get a bit derivative after a while. But but the thing about the blues, it can be easily reinvented if you're doing it with honesty, and it's coming from your experience.
Totally.
And you touched on this. And I hear David Byrne and Mark Mounbacher from Devo, and I hear like a new wave punk, a very Canadian kind of delivery within that song, and there's kind of an amalgamation of disciplines and passions, which for me always stood it out as being very unique. And I can see how some people are uncomfortable with that because it breaks their preconception.
Right. We have experienced that, totally. But we are definitely a sum of our parts and our experiences. So everything, like I say, everything I had listened to and like downloaded, basically all the music that I just rammed into my brain from the time I was as far back as I can remember, was in there, and that informs me as a musician. Like I say, like I would find stuff on the guitar and I'd be like, whoa, I've heard this before, or this sounds like that, but it's an amalgam. It's like everything that it's like a gumbo. So that's where I draw from, subconsciously, consciously, whatever it is. I don't try and
you can't overthink it.
No, it's just whatever it is. It is like that's probably one of the benefits of coming at music in a non-trained, non-academic manner is I can just go intuitive, and if it sounds good to me, then that sounds like music. You know,
Chances are,
sure,
it's pretty good.
yeah.
Okay, 2008, you record "Down by Desire" as a songwriter. The track we're going to play next, "Mess Around." What does that stick out about that song? Either the recording or the writing process or the recording process with that song.
Well, just the recording process. The writing process was easy. It was an inspiration that was quick, and it was a quick write. But actually, when I brought that in to Dave and to Mitch especially, what they did with it just took it, and it just made me, it just filled me up. Like I remember the first time that, because Mitch is such a vocal giant, and then Dave is as well, and just the way that I brought it in. It's a simple song, simple guitar song, and then what they did with it, adding themselves in there, and then what Mitch did on a production level, it just took it to another level.
Whole
that
other
I could
level.
have never imagined.
This is the beauty of studio stuff when
Yeah.
it takes the idea and dresses it so nicely. It doesn't change it.
No,
but the creator of the song loves it.
Totally,
because it gets it.
It was magic for me, for sure.
Well, here's a bit of magic, right? BarbershopPodcast.com.
Do you think you'd like to spend some time and just be kind with me? It's free. Don't you think you'd like to take a chance and have a dance nice and slow before you go? Do you think you'd like to take a risk and have a kiss, not too fast, make it last? And don't you think you might like to mess around, mess around? Think you might like to mess around? Don't you think you might like to mess around, mess around? Think you might like to mess around? Don't you think you might like to mess around, mess around? You think you might like to mess around with me? Ooh, yeah, me. Do you think you'd like to take a walk and have a talk, holding hands in the sand? Do you think you'd like to take a ride, run off and hide on the moon this afternoon? Do you think you'd like to take me on and hear my song? It's not a sin to let me in. Don't you think you might like to mess around, mess around? Think you might like to mess around? Don't you think you might like to mess around, mess around? Think you might like to mess around? Don't you think you might like to mess around, mess around? You think you might like to mess around with me? Yeah, me. Do you think you'd like to take a flight and leave tonight, get in the air without a care? Do you think you'd like to lay me down on the ground, roll around, make a sound? Do you think you'd like to take me home and be alone, lock the door, give me more? Don't you think you might like to mess around, mess around? Think you might like to mess around? around? Don't you think you might like to mess around? Mess around. You think you might like to mess around with me? Yeah, you'll see. Let's mess around. 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 Let's mess around.
Framus here at barbershoppodcast.com, living the real life, writing about a real life, playing a real life. It's great to identify, and something that everyone can have a touchstone with. And music is a great vehicle to bring people together. You must have met some really interesting folks.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's been a great ride. That's been probably the best part of it.
Yeah.
Was being... meeting people right from the jump. The open mics, that was probably your first trip
Yep.
out into the world
Yep.
as well, with dragging your guitar cases around. I did that for a good portion of time. Remember the Tuesday night at Mermaids, the Wednesday night at Staircase, and that was a great community that just came together. It was super supportive. The Staircase, it was always packed. Wednesday nights was great. There was a bunch of, Alfie Smith was around there at the time. There was a bunch of people that Annie Shaw, just a bunch of people that were just so good and so supportive, and it was just great to be in that environment at the time. It was really soul filling.
Yeah, because I think people who don't play don't understand the kind of trepidation involved when you're starting that out.
Totally.
I mean, this is not only your diary, so you're sharing your thoughts and your feelings,
Oh, yeah.
but you're singing them and you're playing them.
Singing is the biggest. It's more terrifying than jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah.
Singing and that was the last hurdle kind of to overcome to get it in front of people, and that takes a while too. Like,
Yeah, and to sing in your own
and
voice.
using the term singing loosely.
Yeah.
Projecting vocally,
Yeah.
but
And I think that's it. The honesty in your voice, again, is more important than the fact you might be able to have perfect pitch.
oh, absolutely,
And,
I
you know,
agree.
and to accept that in yourself.
Yeah.
And not beat yourself up that you don't sound like the radio.
Yeah, there's so much like that singy, whatever it is nowadays. I think it's from all the singing contests on TV where people are bending notes and singing and over singing, and it's just project what you want to say.
Stop it, people.
Yeah, just say it. You don't have to. We know you don't have to flex your muscles all the time because it just wears you out.
Yeah, it wears you out. Well, that's the last thing we want to do here at barbershoppodcast.com. I want to play a little something off of your most recent album on Mortal Love, a song called Strange Dream.
Strange Dream.
Now, do you have a story about this particular song?
That was written after a strange dream, strangely enough.
wouldn't you know it? And that was the note when you woke up the next day. It was like the title. And you thought, why am I going to change that? That's pretty perfect.
Yeah, it was just a dream about people that have gone to the other side, as it were, and just connecting, and that kind of feeling of missing people that have passed on, and the fact that they're not in your life, but they are still kind of in your life. And when you have a dream like that, I don't know what your personal situation is, but I just recently had a dream about when my parents are passed away, and I've lost quite a few family members over the years. And when you have a dream and they're in it, it's like a bonus.
Yeah.
It's like you wake up and you're like, wow, I actually got a chance to reconnect,
Have
and
a conversation
yeah,
and
totally.
feel that thing.
It carries with you. It carries with me for some period of time. It's like getting plugged back in a strange, ethereal way. I don't know, but so that's what happened after I had a dream, and I just kind of expanded the idea, and through a couple other people that I had missed for a while, and next thing you know, a song.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Born and produced and available on 2011's On Mortal Love. This is Strange Dream by Famous Framus on barbershoppodcast.com. Strange Dream by Famous Framus on barbershoppodcast.com. That's from 2011's On Mortal Love. And we've got Famous Framus in the studio for another little while. He's joining Ryan and us, brought in Paul Botos, and we're having a fine old time on a Wednesday night, as we do each and every Wednesday night at Barbershop Podcast. We've got a little event ourselves coming up that
Yeah.
We could mention it at.
We should.
You know,
It's coming pretty quick.
it's coming pretty quick. It's for a week this Friday.
Yeah.
And it's at Casbah Lounge, right at the corner of King Street.
The lounge?
Oh no,
No,
sorry,
it's not.
Casbah.
There is no Casbah Lounge.
That's right. Well, actually, he's renovating down in there. It's gonna
I think
be
somebody else bought it.
but
I'm
it's
pretty
gonna-
sure there's somebody else in there now.
Yeah, it's going to look pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the Casbah is rocking. It's got a new look, new stage, new feel. And Barbershop Podcast has got a dirty rock and roll showcase going in there. Some of our good friends, some of our past guests, and some new friends.
Future guests.
Future guests, indeed. So the night's being kicked off at around 9:30 by Tyson and Eric and Spin Dizzy. And then Iggy from Black and Red. He's got a new outfit, old school punk, that's what he's telling me, which means it's actually tuneful, some good musicianship in it. And then we've got Tommy Gunn, Lou J and Tommy and all the boys in that band. They're smoking, hitting on all cylinders these days. And then the Kents, got the Marshall Brothers and John Connolly and the Kents. If you haven't seen the Kents, you need to see the Kents. They're really good. And then Death Point, going to bring in some serious.
And we checked them out. That is up my alley. That is my cup of tea. Yeah. I love me some metal.
Ryan loves them.
I'm pretty pumped to see those guys.
Yeah, he's going to enjoy that. So we'll put the poster up all over our site all week, and we'll have it up to show you next week on the show.
I think I can even. We got it right. Oh, it covers my face, but there you go.
If you're going to cover anyone's face for any reason, it's with our poster.
You don't need me in there.
You go right there.
You go.
Everything's backwards.
It's all about that. Is it backwards?
Well, for me.
Oh, yeah, because it's like a mirror.
Yeah. Well, I've had a great week. It's been a good week. A lot of stuff happening in the studio, and it's been another great show. Framus has come in. He's played some tunes live. He's shared his story. He's brought in 3 CDs chock full of good music, good original music, and he's going to play one more for us.
Sure.
Excellent. Right here at Barbershop Podcast.
I wrote this one for Johnny Cash, actually, but he never got it.
Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Behind my face, something went wrong. I fell from grace, and now I'm all gone. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. I failed the test. I lost my way. Gave in to flesh. Now here I lay. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Don't throw me away. Judge me not. Say what you'll say. This too shall pass. Come judgment day. Don't throw me away. 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 Don't throw me away.
Redemption.
A new kind of redemption song here. BarbershopPodcast.com. Famous Framus. Well, you know what? I feel a little bit famous. You feel a little bit famous, Ryan Cannon?
Yeah, I am now.
Yeah.
We all have a little famous,
Yeah.
don't we?
We're all a little famous now.
We're all a little famous now. Well, you know what? It's great each and every week to have someone in here lift spirits and sings and plays their heart out. And we got it once again this week.
What a pleasure and an honor, Kevin,
Oh,
to
buddy.
be in the barbershop.
You know what?
It was a
Ryan,
pleasure having you.
thank
Yeah, a supporter, someone who's actually loves the format, loves what we're
love the
doing
show,
here.
man.
Maybe
You
our
guys are
biggest
doing,
fan.
fighting the good
Yep.
fight, doing the good work.
There you
thanks.
go. There you go. Listen to Framus. He knows what he's talking about.
Listen,
Do it.
do it. Do it up.
Well, next week we got the Killin' Time Band in here.
All right.
At the month party, we got Brad Hales, Jarrett Coop, and the boys, and they are a hardworking band, and we are followers of the same philosophies. It should be a fragrant and heady show next week.
We should have had them this past Sunday.
Yes, well,
We should have done it if we had a thought ahead.
you know,
Yeah.
did it magically on 420. But,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Next year. Maybe
Next
it'll fall
year.
on a Wednesday.
It's always another 420.
always
rolling
another
around.
420.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And we're going to see you next week. Thanks for coming out. Remember,
Yeah.
barbershoppodcast.com. Tell all your friends.
Yep. See ya.